now that the shutdown is over soon, we should be getting job number reports there and different type of labor reports that will help shape how the economy is doing. Look here at the markets right now, sliding once again. We saw the big dip yesterday, and this one another sell-off day as investors will be soon be waiting for those key updates that will no doubt be seeing just how the economy is doing and really what the Fed will be doing in the next couple of months as well. So we want to talk about the Federal Reserve. What is the latest as these numbers will start to trickle in? So let's bring in right now from Barron's Nicole Goodkind. Great to have you on, Nicole, once again. And yeah, I think that's what investors want to see is some hard numbers that will no doubt see how that shapes the Fed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a month and a half of no data, and I think both, Wall Street and the Federal Reserve are flying partially blind. Of course, there's been a lot of private data that's helped supplement, what we usually see, and I think that if you were to ask a Federal Reserve official, they would say on the record, they might say something else off the record, that they do feel as though they have their pulse on the economy and know what's going on right now. But next week, starting next week, we're going to get a flood of data. So we're officially going to get jobs numbers next week. And then we can expect to see, I think, some inflation data coming after that. And it's really going to be catch up. We're going to see policymakers have to contend with multiple months of data. And, if there are any surprises there, really reconfigure their outlook based on that, and then try to signal that to markets ahead of their blackout period before the next meeting. So there's a lot to do. There's a lot on the agenda, and I know that both Wall Street and DC are watching closely.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And it seems like there will be so many eyes, especially when this new data does come out. Because the last time we heard from Fed Chair Jerome Powell, I mean, he wasn't saying either way what's going to happen as far as for a possible cut.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was very cautious, and he specifically said that, when we're driving in the fog, we slow down, which I think actually is an indication. Fed officials, particularly Chair Powell, don't like to say things overtly. They speak in code. And so even the subtlest remark means a lot. And this time he was actually quite forceful in saying, don't expect a rate cut come December. And so I do think that what we last heard from him was that he was feeling rather hawkish. Meaning that he wasn't planning to ease policy based on what he was seeing, or he didn't think that, market expectations were maybe too high, is what he thought. So since then, we've seen a lot of Fed officials kind of back him up there. And so we'll see what happens. The data may change things, but right now it seems like based on what they're seeing, they think that inflation is a little bit more of a pressing issue than the other side of their dual mandate, which is employment. So this data is really going to change things, or potentially could change things, and we may see the Fed shift gears right now. But right now, if you look at what markets or investors are thinking, and if you listen to what Fed officials are saying, it does seem like they're slightly tilted more in the direction of pausing come December.
And for the government shutdown, does this give Fed Chair Jerome Powell and other members of the Fed a way to look and maybe put some blame if they don't decide to do some cuts on the actual shutdown?
I think that they have absolutely said that the lack of data from the shutdown has led them to be more cautious and to perhaps pause until they get more data. When you don't know what to do, when you're careening down a road in the fog, it's probably better to pull over to the side of the road than to continue going. That's what they've been broadcasting. However, the shutdown is over. And so I think there's going to be a lot more data coming. And because of that, they won't really be able to use that fog metaphor for much longer. If the data does show that things are vastly different than what we've been seeing in private data that's been available, which I personally don't think it will, but anything is possible, then certainly they could say, look, the shutdown made us error on policy, and we need to correct it now. But I think that's probably a bit of a long shot. As far as how the shutdown has affected the economy and jobs, and how that might change what the Fed is doing, they've really minimized that. They've said it really isn't going to make much of a difference in the long run, and that the economy should recover. So they're not really, putting that into their policy decisions right now.
Yeah, and all eyes are going to be on November 20th, coming up next week, later in the week, as the Bureau of Labor going to be releasing those September jobs reports. What are you going to be looking at the most from that report, and see the reaction from the Fed as well?
So, what the Fed and what Jerome Powell in particular has been focusing on is that top line unemployment number, which really hasn't budged. Certainly job seekers and people in this environment are feeling um, as though there's a weakening labor force, and I don't think they're wrong. But there's a lot of elements going on to make it actually seem as though unemployment is staying the same. So demand for the labor is weakening, but so is supply. As President Trump's immigration policy takes effect, there are less workers available. So things are actually evening out, and the labor market seems okay. So that top line market number might not move as much as we think, but that doesn't mean there's not underlying weakness. I'll really be looking at wage growth. I think that's going to tell us a lot more. If we see that wages aren't growing or even diminishing, that's a pretty bad sign for what's going on with the economy, and the just kind of taking a look under the hood and seeing what's actually happening there.
Yeah, so much is going to be revealed in the coming week. And Nicole, we know you'll be definitely tracking all of the very latest right here on Live Now from Fox. Always great to have you on, Nicole.
Great to see you. Have a great weekend.
Yes, you too. Take care.